Jennifer Lawrence walked onto The View, expecting the usual press tour routine. A little laughter, some praise for her new film, maybe a light political comment if it came up. But what happened next left the studio in silence and the internet in flames. Within minutes, the interview spun into a full-on confrontation with Whoopi Goldberg. Viewers watched in shock as the exchange escalated until producers were forced to step in. What began as a promotional segment turned into a public clash over speech, science, and power. And before anyone could fully process it, Jennifer Lawrence was being escorted off the set. This was not a heated moment. This was a live meltdown. Millions saw it unfold in real time. Some called it media censorship. Others called it long overdue accountability. But almost everyone agreed on one thing. This was one of the most explosive daytime TV interviews in years. So what really happened between Jennifer Lawrence and Whoopi Goldberg that day? Was she shut down for speaking out? Or was she simply challenged for stepping into controversial territory? Before we break down what really happened, make sure to subscribe so you do not miss stories that shake up Hollywood and challenge the mainstream narrative. The studio lights were hot and bright as Jennifer Lawrence stepped onto the set of The View. The audience burst into applause, some even standing to clap as she waved and smiled. She looked relaxed, confident, completely in her element. After all, this was not new for her. Jennifer had done dozens of talk show appearances over the years. She was used to the routine. Walk out, crack a few jokes, talk about her latest movie, and leave with a few clips that would trend on social media. That was the plan today, or at least it was supposed to be. She took her seat on the panel, exchanging hugs and greetings with the co-hosts. The energy was upbeat. The producers behind the cameras looked satisfied. Everything was going according to schedule. Jennifer's movie was topping the box office, and she was there to do what every actor does during a press tour: build buzz and stay on message. Whoopi Goldberg welcomed her with that calm and commanding tone audiences have heard for decades. "Great to have you back," she said with a nod. Jennifer smiled and replied, "Thank you. I always enjoy being here." Her voice was steady, her posture relaxed. It was all smooth sailing. The conversation started off light. They talked about the film's director. Jennifer shared a funny story from the set. The audience laughed in all the right places. It felt like a standard celebrity segment, designed to keep things easy, positive, and just entertaining enough to hold viewers through the next commercial break. But beneath that smooth rhythm, something else was coming. The kind of shift you only notice in hindsight. For now though, everything felt familiar. Warm lighting, friendly banter, polite questions. Nobody in the room knew it yet, but this segment was not going to end the way it started. Just as everything seemed to be going smoothly, Whoopi leaned forward slightly and shifted the mood of the conversation. Her tone changed. Her expression became more serious. Then she asked a question that was not on any of the pre-approved cards. "Jennifer," she said, "you have been pretty outspoken lately on some political issues. I am curious, what do you think is the responsibility that comes with having such a big platform?" Jennifer paused for just a moment. It was not a long pause, but it was noticeable. Her smile faltered, then quickly returned. She sat up a little straighter in her seat. This was clearly not part of the promotional script she had been given. She answered carefully. "Well," she said, "I think everyone has the right to share their thoughts, no matter what they do for a living." There was a polite murmur from the audience. Some people nodded, others looked unsure. Jennifer's co-hosts exchanged quick glances, sensing that the tone had shifted. What had started as a warm, upbeat chat had taken a turn towards something more serious. Whoopi nodded slowly, but did not move on. Instead, she pressed a little harder. "But when you have millions of followers who watch what you say, do you not think there is a level of accountability that comes with that?" she asked. Jennifer glanced out at the audience, then back at Whoopi. You could feel it in the room. The air was tighter. This was no longer a friendly segment. This was a challenge. Jennifer kept her cool, but chose her words with more precision. "I think accountability goes both ways," she replied. "The media also has a responsibility to be fair and not twist things to push an agenda." The audience fell quiet. You could sense people leaning in. The set lights felt a little brighter. The mood had definitely changed. This was not going to be the kind of interview where everyone stayed comfortable. If you think interviews should stick to entertainment, or you believe public figures must be challenged, let us know in the comments. And remember to subscribe for more real talk from Hollywood's unscripted moments. Whoopi looked directly at Jennifer and said, "But when you have millions of followers who watch what you say, do you not think there is a level of accountability that comes with that?" Jennifer shifted slightly in her chair. She knew what was happening. This was no longer about her movie. It was about control, about who gets to speak and who gets shut down. She kept her voice calm but firm. "I think accountability goes both ways," she said. "People in media have a platform too. When they frame things in a certain way, or ask questions with a clear agenda, that has consequences." The room got quieter. You could feel the audience holding their breath, unsure of where this was going. Even the other co-hosts, who were usually quick to jump in, stayed silent. Jennifer was not backing down, and neither was Whoopi. So are you saying this show is pushing an agenda? Whoopi asked. Her voice was sharp now. She sat up straighter, challenging Jennifer with her tone and her words. Jennifer looked her in the eye. I am saying that if you invite someone here to talk about their work, and then shift the topic to politics in a way that makes them look irresponsible, that feels like narrative control, not journalism. There was no applause, no laughter, just silence. The kind of silence that makes people uncomfortable. You came here with opinions, Whoopi said, and we are allowed to question them. That is not narrative control. That is doing our job. Jennifer nodded. Sure, but you did not ask me what I believed. You asked if I should be held accountable. That suggests I did something wrong before I even explained myself. That is framing, and people notice it. The tension was growing with every line. Jennifer's voice was steady, but you could tell she was frustrated. Whoopi leaned back slightly, but her tone stayed firm. Jennifer, we have to push back when people say things that go against public health or factual consensus. That is part of being responsible. Jennifer responded quickly. And what if that consensus changes? What if asking questions gets labeled dangerous just because it does not fit the current narrative? At what point are we allowed to think for ourselves without being called a threat? One of the co-hosts glanced down, avoiding eye contact. Another shifted in her seat but said nothing. No one wanted to interrupt. This was not just a celebrity interview anymore. It was a real-time argument about truth, power, and who gets to control the story. And Jennifer was making it clear. She was not going to let anyone else control hers. Whoopi leaned forward and spoke with a tone that left no room for confusion. Jennifer, when you post things that go against expert advice, it matters. You are spreading misinformation. That is not just an opinion. That is dangerous. Jennifer's expression changed. She was no longer just defending herself. Now she looked like she had reached her limit. I have never spread misinformation, she said. I have shared concerns. I have asked questions. That is not the same thing. Just because someone challenges what the experts say does not mean they are lying or trying to hurt people. Whoopi shook her head. But you are not an expert, Jennifer. When people hear what you say, they might take it as truth. That can affect lives. Jennifer nodded slowly. And experts have changed their guidance many times. At first they said masks did not work. Then they said they did. Then they said cloth masks were useless. Then they changed their advice again. So which version was the truth? There was a buzz in the audience. Some nodded in agreement. Others looked shocked. This was no longer just an interview. It was a real-time clash over who gets to speak and who gets silenced. Jennifer continued. Remember when the lab leak theory was called a conspiracy? People were banned from social media for even mentioning it. Then it turned out it might have been true all along. So again, I ask, when are people allowed to question things without being labeled a threat? Whoopi's voice rose. Because questioning is not the problem. Spreading doubt in a way that undermines public trust is. Jennifer did not flinch. That is the problem. You think asking questions is the same as spreading doubt. You are saying people cannot think for themselves unless their views match yours. The co-hosts were frozen in place. No one wanted to interrupt. The audience was divided. Some people clapped softly. Others stared at the floor. A few exchanged looks that said this was going too far. Whoopi tried again. This is not about opinions. It is about science. When people ignore that, it becomes a public safety issue. Jennifer replied, science is not a script. It changes. That is the whole point. When it changes, people should be allowed to talk about it. That is not dangerous. Silencing people is. The room was tense. You could hear chairs shifting. Even the crew behind the cameras seemed frozen. Everyone knew this moment was different. Look, Jennifer said, I get it. You think you are protecting people, but calling everything a conspiracy just because it does not fit the current talking points is not protecting anyone. It is shutting people down. Whoopi looked frustrated. Because some of those theories actually do hurt people. Jennifer leaned forward, and some of those questions end up being right. So who gets to decide what we are allowed to talk about? That is what I want to know. No one had an answer. And maybe that was the point. Jennifer sat upright in her chair, her voice steady but full of conviction. In a democracy, people should be able to question policies that affect their daily lives. That includes public health measures. That includes government decisions. That includes everything. Whoopi kept her eyes locked on Jennifer. There is a difference between asking questions and undermining the collective good. Public health is not just about you. It is about everyone around you. Jennifer nodded. I agree that public health matters, but so does freedom. When people are told they cannot ask questions without being labeled dangerous, that is not democracy. That is control. You could feel the tension grow in the room. It was not just about Jennifer and Whoopi anymore. It was about what it means to live in a free society. What it means to have open debate. Whoopi leaned forward. We are talking about a global pandemic that killed millions. When someone with influence spreads doubt about proven safety measures, that is not protecting freedom, that is risking lives. Jennifer responded just as quickly. And when government policies shut down businesses, keep families apart, and punish people for speaking out, that is not just about safety, that is about power. People have the right to ask if those trade-offs were worth it. The audience was silent. No clapping, no coughing, just focused attention. Whoopi's voice grew sharper. Jennifer, you are framing this as if people were punished for simply having opinions. But when those opinions lead to real-world harm, there have to be consequences. Jennifer held her ground. But who decides what is harmful? Who decides what counts as misinformation and what is just a different view? You say people should be held accountable, but that often means silencing them before they are even heard. The two women were not raising their voices, but the emotional weight in the room was thick. They were drawing clear lines around values that were hard to reconcile. Whoopi said, "You have a platform. With that comes the responsibility to use it carefully. Millions of people look to you. That is not just freedom, that is influence." Jennifer looked straight back. And freedom means people get to think for themselves. It means they can weigh expert advice, look at their own lives, and make decisions. You do not protect democracy by treating people like they cannot be trusted. The clash had shifted into something deeper. It was not about a specific issue anymore. It was about two very different ways of looking at the world. One focused on protecting the group. The other focused on protecting the right to speak, question, and decide. Neither of them backed down. They both believed they were right. And maybe that was the most honest part of the entire exchange. They were standing on different sides of a hard question with no easy answer. And for a moment, the whole country was listening. Jennifer sat forward, her tone sharper now. You know what the real issue is? It is not that I asked a question. It is the way you talk down to me like I do not understand what I am saying. Whoopi crossed her arms. Her voice dropped to a cold tone. Because what you are saying is dangerous. Jennifer, you may not realize it, but it is. Jennifer's eyes narrowed. Dangerous how? Because I do not agree with you. Because I asked why people were not allowed to question changing policies. Without getting shut down, Whoopi stayed quiet for a beat. Then she replied, because your words carry weight. Millions of people listen to you. And when you say things that go against medical consensus, that matters. Jennifer leaned in. Fine, then show me. Show me one false thing I have said. Show me one lie. One actual piece of misinformation. The studio fell silent. Whoopi opened her mouth, but paused. No words came out. Jennifer sat back, waiting. You cannot, Jennifer said. You cannot point to a single thing. Because I have not told people what to think. I have not claimed to be a doctor. I have only said people should be allowed to ask questions without being labeled or punished. The audience was still could feel the weight in the air. Jennifer kept going, and this is exactly the problem. I came on this show to talk about a film. Instead, I am being grilled like I committed a crime. All because I dared to say we should be able to think for ourselves. Whoopi finally spoke, her voice raised now. This platform is not for people to push ideas that can harm others. Jennifer responded instantly, and this country is not supposed to be a place where people are silenced for asking the wrong questions. There it was, the line that hit like a punch. And right after, Whoopi turned to someone off camera and said, "Security." Jennifer blinked. Are you serious? You are calling security because I disagreed with you. A pair of guards appeared at the edge of the set, unsure whether to step in. Jennifer stood up. She looked around the room, then back at Whoopi. You brought me here to embarrass me. You did not want a conversation. You wanted a warning for anyone else who thinks like me. She started walking toward the exit, her voice calm but firm. This is what it looks like when you challenge the wrong narrative. You get labeled, you get pushed out. But you know what? At least I said what I came to say. And with that, Jennifer Lawrence walked off the set. The moment Jennifer Lawrence walked off that set, the room stayed quiet. The co-hosts sat still. The audience looked around, unsure of what they had just witnessed. There was no applause, no laughter, just silence. And then the cameras cut to commercial. But the fallout started almost immediately. Within an hour, clips of the confrontation were everywhere. Social media lit up. The hashtags trended. People were sharing short videos, posting reactions, and debating every word of the exchange. Some called Jennifer brave. They said she stood her ground, spoke her truth, and refused to let herself be pushed into silence. Others thought she crossed a line. They said she used a public platform to question things that should not be debated during a health crisis. Major media outlets picked it up fast. Headlines varied. Some described it as a clash over freedom and responsibility. Others said it showed the dangers of letting celebrity voices steer serious discussions. On the other side, fans of The View stood by Whoopi. They said the show had every right to challenge a guest who brought controversial opinions. But others pointed out that the show invited her on and then turned the spotlight in a different direction, without warning. The View released a short statement later that day. It said the show supports open dialogue but reserves the right to end interviews that become unproductive or disruptive. That was all they said. No mention of Jennifer by name. Jennifer herself went quiet. No tweets, no Instagram stories, no press comments, at least not right away. And that silence only made the story grow. People wanted to know if she would speak again, if she would double down or clarify her words. But in the hours and days that followed, one thing became clear. That moment on live TV had started a much bigger conversation. Not just about the pandemic or politics, but about who gets to speak, who gets challenged, and what happens when two powerful voices collide in front of millions. Whether you agreed with her or not, Jennifer Lawrence had made her mark, and the impact was still rippling out. What happened on that stage between Jennifer Lawrence and Whoopi Goldberg was not just a clash of opinions. It was a bigger moment. That revealed a lot about how we treat disagreement, especially when it plays out in front of millions. At its core, this was not really about a celebrity interview. It was about who gets to speak and who gets shut down. It was about the power of platforms like The View, and how quickly things can shift from conversation to confrontation. Jennifer came in expecting to talk about her work, but when the questions turned political, she stood her ground. She pushed back, not with insults or shouting, but with direct questions and clear concerns. That alone made people uncomfortable. That is the real question. And the answer depends on how we define free speech, who we believe should have the power to frame a conversation, and whether we still have space for real debate without turning it into a battle. This moment showed that being famous does not protect you from backlash. It also showed that even daytime talk shows can become battlegrounds for much bigger cultural fights. Maybe you agree with Jennifer, maybe you agree with Whoopi, or maybe you just think both sides had points worth hearing. Either way, this was a moment worth paying attention to, not just because of what was said, but because of how it all unfolded. So what do you think? Was Jennifer Lawrence silenced for raising concerns, or was The View right to push back the way they did? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let us know where you stand, and more importantly, why. And if you made it this far, you probably have thoughts. So leave a comment. And if you want more videos that break down moments the media tries to control, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. More stories are coming, and you will not want to miss.